God, that's so much better. Thank you. Oh, this is an awful chair.
How many more years do we think we have this chair for?
Infinity.
Forever.
Infinity years?
Infinity, until the cold heat death of the universe finally claims the last wink of life from existence. And speaking of the universe, I think we're ready for Phil Plait.
Beautiful transition.
Well done.
Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Phil Plait. So sorry.
Every single year this happens. I'm like, I'm just trying to get this on Twitter
Oh my
to tell
goodness.
people that I'm on live.
All right.
But
You
I'm not
tweet.
doing anything except being on Twitter, so this is ironic.
All right, you tweet while
Here we
I
go.
introduce you. All right, this is Phil
Sure.
Plait. If you may know him as Bad Astronomer, he is a writer and popular science blogger, and he has many bona fides. He has worked on the Hubble Space Telescope team. He has published 3 books, including Bad Astronomy, Death from the Skies, and 27 Nerd Diseases. He was the head science writer for the first season of Bill Nye Saves the World. He hosts a Crash Course in Astronomy, which is a 46-part YouTube series that are just astronomy classes if you, like me, care about the skies, and was a technical consultant for the CBS series Salvation. I don't know what that is, but I bet it was correct.
It was a CBS series, and was it correct? Well, you can give people scientific consulting work, but it doesn't necessarily mean they'll take it. And hey, I'm curious, what was the 3rd book I wrote? What was that you said?
27 Nerd Disses. Oh, Nerd Disses,
Yeah.
I misread it.
See, I'm pretty sure you said 27 Nerd Diseases, and I'm thinking, that's an interesting book.
Absolutely.
And in fact, it's 2 to the 7th Nerd Disses. It's 128 of them.
Oh.
That might be hard to read because, yeah, it's a little caret in there, not a carrot.
Look, I was not elected queen for life because of my reading ability.
And I'm not trying to tease you. I just thought that was funny. It's like 27 Nerd Diseases. I could probably come up with 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Probably have 2 or 3 myself.
So thank you so much for joining us, Phil, as you do every year.
I love this. This is one of my favorite things.
Thank you. You have a lot of stuff that you do, but I do you know more about the comings and goings of the current science world than I do. So what's the coolest thing that has been discovered recently in the world of astronomy to catch us up in cool, neat?
What's been discovered recently?
just
That's
like
a good question.
Just like a milestone. Did we get
There's
somewhere?
always stuff. Has there been anything big lately? There's always incremental stuff. We're finding more planets orbiting other stars, and some of them are weird. They orbit. You get some big planet, it dive bombs its star and goes way back out, or there's a bunch of planets and they're orbiting really close in. Systems that don't look anything like ours. And so that's always really cool. Every time I see a new paper about that, it's like, oh, neat. It may not be, holy cow, we found another planet that looks like Earth. It may not be like that, but it's still pretty interesting. They're finding more gravitational waves all the time. When 2 black holes or 2 neutron stars merge and explode, and they blast out these ripples in the fabric of space-time. And I just found out the LIGO, the Laser Interferometry Gravitational Wave Observatory, I think. Somebody correct me. This is the
Nobody here can.
Nobody here, yeah. And all these acronyms, I've got about 4,000 of them floating around in my head, and so sometimes I have to really think about them. But they're constantly not constantly, but they detect these things every now and again, and they've got a new app out, which I haven't tried yet, but it's called Chirp, CHIRP, like a bird chirping, because has to do with the sort of the waves that these things generate. So there's always something, going on in astronomy. Hey, you know what? Before I forget, today is Sunday. Tomorrow is Monday. I know that much at least. Mercury, the planet, is going to pass directly in front of the sun. It's going to pass directly between the sun and us tomorrow. This is called a transit, and it doesn't happen very often. On average, it's like 13 times per century, once every 7-8 years, something like that. But the next one won't be for 19 years. It doesn't happen like every however many years. So it's going to happen in the morning. This is something you can see for yourself if you're careful. Like don't go staring in the sun. But if you have the right equipment, you can look at this. If you don't have the equipment, or it's cloudy where you are, or it's in the middle of the night where you are when this happens, go online. There are lots of observatories that will be watching this live. If you go to my blog from Friday, a couple of days ago, just go to sci-fi.com, I guess /bad astronomy, or just look me up. I'm out there. I wrote all about this, why this happens, why it doesn't happen all the time, and how you can observe it. And it's pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. This is a chance to see something that's actually relatively rare and neat.
And if you don't get to it, then you have to wait another 19 years or watch it on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it. A lot of these things just happen when they happen. And in this case, it has to do with the way Mercury orbits the sun and the Earth orbits the sun and how they line up and how they're tilted. There's a lot of geometry involved. But basically, yeah, the last one of these was not that long ago, just a few years ago. The next one's not for 19 years. So there'll be plenty of pictures and video and stuff like that. But still, it's kind of neat to see it for yourself if you can. But don't look at the sun unless you know what you're doing. And
Right.
even then, be super careful.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was done.
Can you build one of the like viewing apparatuses where you put a hole in some cardboard or something like that? Because I remember doing that during the solar eclipse that we had, that we saw the partial solar eclipse here.
Yeah, that's a pinhole camera. That's a really old way of like looking at the sun. You just basically literally put a pinhole into a piece of paper, a piece of cardboard, and then hold up another piece behind it. The sunlight comes through, and because of the way optics work, and you're using a little tiny hole, basically all that light is coming in parallel and it forms an image of the sun. The problem is Mercury is very wee. It's very tiny. So I don't know if you can do that in a way to be able to see it. That worked for the Venus transit back in 2012. And yeah, you can do it for the eclipse. I did it for the eclipse a couple of years ago as well. Mercury's pretty tiny. You could, in principle, like take a pair of binoculars and don't look through them, but you could point them at the sun and hold a piece of paper behind them. It's best if you block one of them so you don't have two images, and you can try to get it to focus that way. That could damage your optics, so it's not like the best thing to do. I've done it. I don't recommend it. I have a pair of cheap binoculars I do that with.
I was
but
just
even
going to
then,
say burner binoculars.
What's that?
Burner binoculars, so they could literally be burned.
Bird burners.
Yeah.
But your best bet is just to go online. There's tons of telescopes, and you'll see lots of live streams about it. It's pretty neat. I've seen them before, a couple of them. They're cool.
Excellent. We have some questions for you from our community, if you don't
Always.
mind taking some. All right. Our first one. This is very close to my own personal question. But Cool Hand 2 said, what's the most exciting research occurring that requires watching another galaxy? But you talked a lot about all the cool planets and stuff we're discovering, so.
That requires watching another galaxy. There's been a lot over the years. Certainly, anytime a star explodes in another galaxy, that's a cool thing. Back in the day, when I was doing supernova astronomy, we were detecting a couple of dozen a year. Now they're finding thousands. Our telescopes are so big and we can see so much of the sky and so many faint objects that supernovae are like every day. So they're just amassing this massive amount of information about them. So that's one thing. One thing that I think is really cool is this mission called Gaia, which is a European mission. And it's observing over 1 billion stars, 1 billion with a B. Oh. And it's measuring them extremely accurately. It's finding their precise positions on the sky relative to one another. And so over the years, stars move. They're all orbiting around the galaxy. And so they're all moving relative to each other. And so this thing is really accurately measuring how they're moving, what color they are, a bunch of different things about them. And just everything, every time they release the new data set, it's like all of these measurements taken of 1 billion stars, even more than 1 billion, I think, over a couple of years. Every time they release this data set, like people are like publishing papers like mad because there's like, here's my favorite thing I want to look at. And so they've been able to measure, for example, There's a companion galaxy to the Milky Way called the Large Magellanic Cloud. It's something you can see naked eye from the southern hemisphere. And they've been actually able to measure the motion of some of the stars in it. So this is something that's over 100,000 light years away. It's really far away. And these stars aren't moving that fast, but this thing is so accurate, it can actually detect the motion of these things. So we're looking at nearby galaxies and seeing how they behave. It's also detecting streams of stars in our galaxy. If like a small galaxy, a little dwarf galaxy, our galaxy is really big, and if a little one comes in, gets torn apart by our galaxy, and it leaves behind these long streams of stars. And these stars can be spread out all over the sky, but they are, you're able to figure out that they all belong to the stream because they're all moving in the same way, the same velocity, the same direction. And so they're discovering like a dozen of these things in our galaxy. It's like looking at the undigested bits of a meal that our galaxy has been eating over the past couple of billion years. Whoa. So there's just all kinds of stuff that I wouldn't have even dreamed of being able to do, 20 years ago. And now it's just, they're just doing it. It's amazing.
I mean, to be frank with you, I wouldn't have dreamed that we could do this 20 seconds ago until you just told me we could.
And you're right? You can't keep up with all this stuff. I can't keep up with all this stuff. And there are things that I read about, and it's like, oh, that's neat. And as an astronomer, it's just like, been reading about this stuff for 20 years, and then somebody makes this new thing, and you're like, oh, cool. But then, a layperson or whatever, somebody who's a science enthusiast, but maybe not necessarily keeping up with the journals, to them, that would be a huge revelation. And so I write about these things sometimes and I forget. And it's just like, oh, here's something neat, put it on the blog. And then I get an email from somebody whose head was completely destroyed by their brain exploding when they read it. It's like, that's awesome. I love it when that happens.
Be careful.
You can reach out and measure the face of God and say, oh, those pores. I'm getting a thumbs down and a thumbs up from off screen. I have another. So your, nom de plume online is the bad astronomer, and so Mr. Hush asks, what is your baddest astronomy fact, or what do you like? Do you have any misconceptions that you want to fix now, to stamp out the badness?
No, everything's great. You'd think maybe in relative to the world being on fire right now, talking about people who think the moon landings were fake or that the earth is flat is not that big of a deal. But in fact, I've been writing about this for years. If you are unwilling to accept the science on something as obvious as the earth being round, what else are you doing? People don't typically just believe in one wacky thing. They believe in a lot of wacky things, and it's like there's gateway wacky things, like believing the moon landings are fake. And so really, honestly, it's not even astronomy. If there were one thing in science I wish I could fix, it was people who don't think climate change is real, or that it's not our fault, or that there's nothing we can do about it. All of these things are awful. Climate change is real. It is our fault. And there are things we can do about it. And in fact, I just wrote about this on Twitter the other day, and I got hammered by a bunch of climate change deniers. And one of them was somebody had talked about socialism. They immediately call me a socialist, which I think is funny. I'm not going to get too political here. What I'm saying is they throw out these buzzwords that are just meant to immediately dismiss somebody, and it's like, really? Because about 400,000 times I've written about how investing in solar panels and wind and all these other things are making people very rich. So actually accepting climate change is something we should be doing as a capitalist society, because there's a ton of money involved with it. It's just that there's a ton of old money involved with it too. And that's the problem.
A cause near and dear to my own heart. As a parent is doing something immediately about climate change.
You're here.
Yeah.
So moving on to maybe something a little bit more upbeat.
I can make anything awful. Don't worry.
Oh, we should hang out more. This is great. What So this is speaking of space traveling, sort of like, if traveling out in space, doing things, finding stuff. Nani Alama asks, do you think dark matter will help us in our future space traveling? And I don't understand the question.
I do. That's okay. So dark matter is something that was fairly controversial for a long time and now really isn't. There was some hints, even not a century ago, but getting toward that amount of time ago, that there may be a lot of matter out there that we're not seeing. And then in the 1970s, Vera Rubin, an astronomer, was measuring how galaxies rotate, how the stars move around in the galaxy. And what she found is that the evidence was really pretty clear. They're not rotating the way you expect. If you think of a galaxy as just being made up of stars, then we kind of know how the gravity of that works. And the problem was she was seeing that the stars were not going around the center of the galaxy, matching that at all. And in fact, it looked very much like there's a halo of material around that galaxy that is extremely massive, and it's changing the way those stars orbit. And she was right, and that was called dark matter, and we now know it plays a central role in how not just galaxies spin, but how they interact with each other, how they form. It's everywhere, and it basically works on a very, very large scale. Problem is, it's dark, doesn't give off any light, and it doesn't seem to interact with normal matter. I mean, if I flick your ear and you go, ow, that's because my matter has interacted with your matter. The problem is dark matter is something different. It passes right through you all the time, and it's really hard to detect. And so we don't really know what it is. We think it's a weird kind of subatomic particle, and there's a lot of it out there, but we don't know what kind. And we've ruled out all kinds of stuff. It's not black holes, it's not rogue planets, it's not anything like that. We know it can't be, because those would have certain effects on our observations that we don't see. Everything has been eliminated by these weird subatomic particles, which brings me back to the question directly, is that we know this stuff exists. If you're asking, we've discovered this new type of fundamental particle or force in nature or something, is there some way we can utilize this in science and physics? Like, when we discovered the electron, that became a fairly useful thing. We're talking to each other because we understand what electrons are. That's what electronics are based on. Could there be something like that with dark matter? I don't know. This is a very long way around of telling you I don't know. but in the end, whenever you discover something new, something fundamentally new that adds to our view of the universe, something will be made of that. Whether it's, we can use it for, interstellar travel, or it just helps us understand how the universe behaves better, then that's a good thing. So I don't know if we're ever going to be able to use, like if it's made of axions or whatever these weird particles are, they may never be useful to us in that sense, but they might be, and we won't know until we find out what they are.
I had no idea an axion existed. How exciting.
Yeah, it's just a thing. We don't know. It's a theoretical subatomic particle.
All right.
But maybe they're out there. And if they are, that might be a good candidate for what dark matter is. People have built detectors to look for specifically this type of particle. There's one at CERN in Geneva. I know there are more. I can't think of where they are off the top of my head. But if you look that kind of stuff up, it's actually fascinating. We don't know what this stuff is. We've only been able to eliminate lots of things it isn't. Which, it's good.
This is not a scientific conjecture, but it's just like maybe it's like a fundamental form of matter we can't really interact with, and then they can't interact with us. So there's dark matter scientists trying to figure out why they can't, like what this little 4% of whatever of like visible matter energy in the universe is that they can't perceive, and they're like, it doesn't make any sense. It's so weird. Maybe we'll find an energy source in there. So
well, that's a pretty funny idea. There's different ideas, I want to say hypotheses about what this is. One of them is called self-interacting dark matter, where it can interact with itself, like atoms do, like protons and electrons do. And there's another kind where they don't, and they just are out there.
It's all ghosts.
we know they have mass because they have gravity. But other than that, we don't know. And so it seems unlikely to me that you might have a dark matter planet because this stuff is so tenuous, so distributed so thinly that it would never come together and maybe interact with itself enough to form planets and people. But I like this idea because we call this stuff dark matter, and we call the stuff we're made out of normal matter. But that's I don't want to say that's colonial thinking, but it's the same kind of thinking because we're not the normal matter.
Yeah.
You know, we're 20% of what kind of matter is out there. The vast majority is this other stuff. And so if they only could see dark matter and not our kind of matter, you're right. They'd be like, our equations never seem to work. We're always off by 20% when we're calculating how these things work. Why is that? For us, it was easier because most of the stuff out there we can't see was really affecting observations. For them, it would be harder.
No matter who you are, you matter.
Yep.
Right. I've heard that.
Hey, this is a very fun question from Rosard. I'm back to I love the idea of just taking this back to like real basic science, so non-science people like me can get it. How are we able to distinguish between a small star that's close to us versus a large star that's far away?
That is a super good question. It's a real problem, or was a real problem, not knowing how far away things are in the universe. And it still can be a problem because sometimes it's just difficult to know when you're looking at an object which side is closer to you and which side's farther away. I've written about that many times. But if you go back a couple hundred years, you look up in the sky and you see all these stars and their different brightnesses, and you're like, well, here's one that's really bright, and here's one that's really faint. Is the really bright one just close to us? Or is it intrinsically really luminous and far away, and this other one's just a normal star and it's closer? And it turns out there are actually a lot of ways of doing this. But in the end, I should say, ironically, in the beginning, the way they figure this out is parallax. And this is the idea that if you change the angle you look at something, it appears to shift back and forth. So, you hold your thumb up and you look at it with one eye and you look at it with the other, and your thumb seems to shift back and forth because you're looking at it from one angle and then another. Stuff way, way, way in the background. Boy, look how big my hand is. That's cool. My hand is giant. Or is it just really close? So that's the things that are really far away don't appear to move very much, and things close up do. And so as the Earth goes around the sun, that changes our angle from, say, January to June. That's a baseline of 300 million kilometers, 180 million miles. And so nearby stars, you're looking at it at one angle. 6 months later, you're looking at it at a different angle. And as you take photographs, for example, of that star, it'll appear to move back and forth in the sky relative to much more distant objects. And so you can calculate that angle, the baseline, do a little bit of trig. Your trig teacher used to say you'll have to use this someday. If you're an astronomer, it turns out you do. And you can get the distances to these stars. And that's another thing that Gaia is doing, that satellite I mentioned earlier. It's moving around the sun, and so it has this huge baseline, and it can see all these parallaxes, and it's measuring the distances to these stars that way, and it's getting better distances than we've ever had. And so that only goes out to a certain distance, and then the angle gets too small and you can't measure it. But there are enough stars close enough to us that we can look at them more carefully and, for example, take a spectrum, break their light up into lots and lots of colors. And different types of stars have different spectra. And so you can look at one star versus say a red dwarf, which is a very, very faint star, versus a red giant, which is a very, very, very luminous star. And when you look at their spectra in detail, even though they might look the same on the sky to your eye, spectra are very subtly different. And you can tell in various ways. I've literally had to do this back in the day with Hubble. And so, yeah, you could say, oh, look, this one's actually a red giant really super far away, and this one's a red dwarf that happens to be really close. And you can sort of bootstrap your way out to larger and larger distances doing that way. It's called the distance ladder. And it's one of the ways we've been able to figure out how far away galaxies are and even more distant objects, because we basically started off measuring nearby objects. And I should say, I'll throw out a plug because why not? I've talked about dark matter. I've talked about parallax. I've talked about red dwarfs and red giants. What else have we talked about here? Galaxies. All of this I've talked about on Crash Course Astronomy, which is a web series I did for Crash Course, 46 episodes, 10 minutes each, of me basically doing this, waving my hands, but with like cool graphics and stuff, and people helping me. And so if you go on YouTube and look that up, you'll find it was a lot of work, a lot of stuff in there, and people seem to like it. So yay!
Excellent. I should go watch that. Oh, we got a couple
Yep.
people in chat saying
It's
Crash
like
Course is
8
excellent.
hours of content.
Excellent. Yeah. No, people are giving many props for Crash Course. So
Oh, look at that in the chat room. Crash
That's
Course is.
amazing.
fans who agreed.
That's a good graphic.
It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, but I'm really, really super proud of it. Very, very useful for me. I reference it all the time on my blog. It's like, go watch this and then come back and I will assume you know everything you need to know about dark matter. So that's fun.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
We are coming up close to the end of our call. So I want to talk briefly about our giveaway that we have, because we have a
Yes.
giveaway. So I'm going to read my description, but I believe you have some goodies and stuff like that too, right? So
Yes.
we have from Phil Plait, the Bad Astronomer. They are back once again with a collection of oddities, curios, and possibly things from literal outer space.
Not even possibly, but for real.
Oh,
What?
yeah. So we
Phil does not bus around.
No.
Yeah, so go ahead.
So we have his selection this year includes an all-access badge from Star Trek Mission New York 2016 that John Delancey signed.
Oh.
That's Hugh.
I mean, you can't use this to like do anything. I don't think that convention even runs anymore.
I
But
disagree.
well, I don't want to know what you're going to do with it. So
Hugh, my poop disturbing early hero from Star Trek. So,
John Delancey was very cool to sign that for me too.
a 10-piece set of Big Bang lollipops, which is edible astronomy.
What?
You see that?
Yeah, they're galaxy
They're like
lollipops.
they're not actually Big Bang. They're like shaped like planets. So you can, I don't know
Oh.
if you can even see that. That one's Saturn. You can see through the little bubble there.
Oh, delicious.
Oh,
I think one of them might be broken.
it's your
Uh-oh.
collection. Oh no.
a 9-piece set of galaxy lollipops.
Actually, I bet I know what that is. I have a meteorite that was sitting on top of this, and it was it's corroding, and so maybe I think pieces of it fell in here. So there you go. Actually, I can't promise, but I think that's what's in here. It's sealed.
It's your Galactus starter kit.
Yeah, there you go.
You have a NASA 60th anniversary bag, and a
So a
rubber
tote
band
bag.
powered a tote bag, and a rubber band powered fling rocket commemorating Apollo's 50th anniversary stickers.
Yeah, this is. You could shoot it at you, but I'd knock my camera over. Keep going.
Keep going. A NASA 60th OSIRIS-REx asteroid mission and pin. Ooh.
Yeah, I've got stickers, and I always have lots of stickers and stuff.
Actually, this lot says a bunch of stickers I personally stole from Randall Munroe from his recent book, How To.
Yeah, at the last minute, he showed up at Comic-Con in San Diego this year. And so I went to his book signing, and they had a stack of these, and I was just like, yoink! So there you go.
Phil Plait's grabby hands. A copy of your book, Death from the Skies, which you will sign for the winner.
Oh, that is really cool art.
And
Yeah, I wasn't sure about this when they first showed it to me, but it grew on me over time. It's like, really? Do we want to terrify people on the cover? But all right.
you called the book Death from the Skies. It's not
Yeah,
like
the first
hugs.
chapter is about asteroid impacts. It's all about how the Earth can get wiped out or how humans can get wiped out by astronomical events.
Oh man, and I was wondering what my nightmares are going to be tonight.
Actually, these days it's more of a feel-good book.
I love you.
Let's go, asteroid impact.
2020.
Year 2020.
Good enough. An actual iron meteorite, including a description.
Here, I'll put it
you
here in
wrote.
front of my forehead so you can see it.
That's from
Yep,
space.
This is, I didn't weigh it. I forgot to weigh it. It's several grams. It's not huge. It's about, I don't know, about the size of a dime. But it's nickel iron. I don't even know if that's focused. Who can tell? It's nickel iron. Fell in Russia in the 1940s, and I will give this to you, to the auction winner, and a one-page write-up I have describing what it is and how it fell to Earth and all that.
If you have a cabinet of curiosities, this is the item for you. It comes with the interpretive signage.
And there's one more thing.
There is
Go ahead.
one more thing, including a description. My own personal one. What?
That's it.
Mini museum.
A mini museum
A mini museum.
donated by the mini museum folks. What is a mini museum?
I first heard about this a few years ago, and a friend of mine had one sitting on his desk. And it is it comes in this lovely little bag of holding, I suppose.
Yeah.
This is let's see, which way is the front way? It's actually really hard to display because it's in lucite, but these are all little cool historical and natural bits of interest that are embedded in this plastic, in this lucite. Like, for example, oh my gosh, look how old I am. How far away can I hold this? A grain of rock that is from the oldest Earth rock, 4.374 billion years old.
Oh my God.
Piece of Ankylosaurus bone fossil, a bit of a samurai sword, a Viking axe, Egyptian papyrus. A part of the club where the Beatles played. The Cavern Club. I'd have to look up exactly what that is. These things are so flippin' cool. And they sent me one a while back, and it comes in that bag. It has this little booklet that describes everything in it. And it comes in this wonderful little box, like a museum, little Tyrannosaur there.
Oh my God.
When I told them I was doing, I announced on Twitter something that I was doing Desert Bus again. They contacted me and said, we want to donate one of these to the auction winner.
Oh.
And I said, absolutely, because these things are so freaking cool.
That's amazing.
If you've got a kid in the family, or you're like me and you're just a giant dork, this is just the coolest thing. I love it.
So as a part of the entertainment team, we're not allowed to do anything
No.
Well, you can buy them. They're online. I can't remember how much they cost. They're different sizes and stuff.
It's not the
This is
same.
basically, it was a passion project by one guy who I'm blanking on his name. Damn it.
That just went around and stole tiny pieces from real
I
museums?
think so. I think he was just basically a scourge at all museums all over the world, scraping rust off of the Apollo 11 capsule.
Oh, that is so cool.
No, I don't know, but no, they've got this group now, and they partner with all these museums or different groups to collect this stuff, and it's just so cool because you don't know. It's always a little different. That's why I said I'll show you mine, but they all have they come out with different versions that have different things in them depending on what they've had recently.
It's like a subscription box of like tiny bits of history, and oh my, I can't even talk.
Yeah.
Oh my
it's
God.
Really, so when they contacted me and said, "Can we donate one?" I was like, "Yes, yes, I think people will enjoy this."
Oh my God.
Many people in our broadcast zone are enjoying it right now. So
You can look it up online, Mini Museum, and find out.
I'm
It's like-
going to. It's two things I enjoy: many things and museums.
Oh, there's already a link up in the chat room.
Click.
Third edition, 29 specimens. I don't know how many I've got in mind, but it's something like that.
Oh, that is so rad.
So how our giveaways work, for those of you in chat who might be unfamiliar, because you're tuning in for the Phil Plait call and you're like, well, I don't know what's going on, I just wanted to watch him. Or somebody who's...
Oh yeah, that happens.
It could happen.
That's why I'm here.
Hey, you have a new fan for life now, man.
How our donation drives work is that we pick a number, and people who donate of that, in that increment or multiples thereof, get a chance to win this very cool prize. So since this is a lot that you put together, do you have a number in mind? Somewhere?
$75 trillion.
Perfect.
If that were to happen, I would have to take time off work next week, which I really can't. So can we have a lower amount?
Trust me, if that were to happen, I would embezzle a tiny fraction of it and disappear.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair. That's fair. We'll work out
I'm
a
on
kickback.
I'm on record as saying that. People say you should be in government. It's like no, I'd write myself a check, pay to the order of cash. $20 million, psst, gone.
At least you know you're a criminal.
Well, I can spend the money better than my governor can. On me. You put me on the spot here a little bit because I don't want to start it too high. These things usually wind up going for a few $1,000s.
Yeah, but they all.
So why don't we start it at 1K?
Well,
What was it? 75 trillion to like 7.5.
Well, there's.
What's the atomic
Yeah.
weight of that
planets,
meteorite?
75
It's
trillion.
nickel iron, right?
yeah.
What's the
Oh,
atomic
So
weight of that?
roughly, 56.
all right,
Yeah.
$9.56.
Boom.
Because that's 9 planets and 56 for the atomic weight of nickel and iron.
The ninth planet hasn't been discovered yet.
Oh, there's 8 planets. 856, I mean.
There are over 4,000 exoplanets discovered now, so let's hope it goes for at least that much.
Perfect. Right. Pluto got demoted.
Aww.
It's not a true planet. It's very small and
Fight me.
erratic.
It's still a planet in my heart.
You know that Pluto
It
is
found its
smaller than
true
our
home.
moon?
Pluto is smaller than the moon?
Yeah,
You
it's a
did.
lot smaller than the moon, actually. It's amazing. It's tiny.
It's like the corgi
Yeah.
of the planet.
It's the corgi of the planets.
Huh.
Well,
It's just shiny, so it's easy to see.
I have an emotional impact. I have an emotional connection to thinking Pluto's a planet, but emotions don't rule the universe. We have to have some rules, so Pluto no longer a planet. So if you throw in a donation of $8.56 or multiples thereof for the next, how long do we want to say? 1 hour? Then you can have a chance to win this delicious and delightful set of things, including stickers, a Star Trek All Access badge from Star Trek Mission New York, rip that con, an actual iron meteorite, and a tiny museum to which you can use to show people things.
So did I misunderstand? It's not a straight auction?
No,
No.
we're doing a giveaway this year because.
Oh, that's my mistake.
No,
my
no,
mistake.
it's okay.
You probably even told me, but this time of year is always a little bit of a nightmare for me trying to keep track of emails. So, that's fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
lovely.
To be completely honest with you, Phil, those raise more money usually. So,
I'm all for raising more money for you guys. And is that Liz that I see there?
Yes.
yeah. So
Hi.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Phil.
You're very tiny on my screen, so I can barely see
Thank
you.
you.
Hey,
did
we
it.
just learned about
I could not hear that.
you're just very
What
excited.
made everybody laugh? What'd I miss?
We just learned about how tiny things are not always far away. So
That's true. Yeah, Liz is actually 75 miles tall, but she's just really, really far away.
well, let's see. I think that's about it. So before we go, where can people check out what you are doing and learn more about astronomy, bad or otherwise, online?
Well, they can see me right now on desertbus.org. Really? Nothing? I thought that was funny in my head. Okay.
I get that a lot.
See, there's a delay because we are so very far away. It's like an echo.
That's
like a
it.
big-
Okay, the speed of light is really not helping my humor at all here.
It's really funny in Canada. though,
I'm on
don't worry.
Twitter as Bad Astronomy. The best place to find me is about.me/PhilPlait because that links to my Instagram and Twitter. I also have a newsletter on Substack.inc or Substack.com called Bad Astronomy Newsletter. That's free on Mondays. Paid subscribers can get an extra edition on Thursday. And of course, my blog, which I've been now writing for I don't even know how long, is now on Sci-Fi. So that's syfy.com. And that's every weekday.
Excellent. Wow. Thank Well, thank you so much. We will, once that donation drive is over, by the way, we are seeing a lot of money coming in, so thank you
wow.
very much.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We've already-
I wanna find out how much, though.
11,000.
Yeah, yeah.
That was 2 minutes.
Yeah, in 2
What's my
minutes.
cut of this, by the way? That was never in the stat.
Thank you, everyone. Phil Plait. Goodbye.
Curses.
But seriously, thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you know how much this donation drive raised. Spoilers, it's a lot
Yeah.
already.
I saw someone do 100 entries.
It is my pleasure.
Cyclops
I love this
Walker
charity.
paid
And
$156.
especially ever since Liz wrote her story about it and why she's involved with it. That really, oh my gosh, that was so wonderful. It's a joy every year to talk to you guys, and especially to find out how much money was raised because of this. It's just stunning what you guys are doing. It's amazing.
It's
Thank
about
you.
to be 280,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
There it is. We just hit $280,000 for
Yeah.
the year.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
I got
for
that
your
window
support.
closed, so I can't keep track.
Thank you. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to everybody in chat who asked awesome questions. We weren't able to get to all of them online, but I feel that we all feel a little bit more educated about how the universe works now. So, and thank you for once again helping us raise money. We really appreciate it.
Yay.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Phil.
Thank you.
Bye, Phil.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget us.
That,
We're at 12.
yeah, Kathleen's not kidding. That raised 4K just in the last couple minutes of the call.
Woof.
Whoa.
That is just going up.
So if you are interested in how to participate in that or want more, if you want more information about what's in that lot, you can check out our website where you can see the prize lot, or you can go check out a blog post on the Desert Bus blog. Thank you so much to our communications team who were super on the ball for getting us the question, for transferring your questions to Phil onto my screen so I could ask them. So thank you very much.